My name is Rhonda Thompson, and I'm 28 years old. If you met my family at a charity gala or a firm-sponsored dinner, you'd think we were sculpted out of polished marble, expensive, spotless, untouchable. The kind of family people pointed at and said, "That's what success looks like." But the truth is, marble cracks. It just cracks quietly. My father, James Thompson, is a lawyer who treats our last name like a trademark. Not a name, a brand. Everything is curated. The house is staged like an open showing. The forks are aligned to invisible measurements. The living room smells like lemon cleaner, even when no one has visited in weeks. Dad's version of love has always been control. He's the type of man who will correct your grammar mid-sentence, then smile like he just saved you from embarrassment. He speaks in calm, professional tones even when he's furious, because anger, in his mind, is messy, and messy is for people without power. My mother, Elaine, is softer, gentle voice, perfect posture, the kind of woman who can deliver an insult with a smile so sweet you'd almost thank her for it. People call her graceful. I used to think she was my shield. Then I realized she wasn't protecting me. She was protecting him. Her favorite line, always delivered with a sympathetic tilt of her head, was, "Your father just wants what's best for you." Like it was a prayer, like it excused everything. And then there was my brother, Ethan. My older brother wasn't just the golden child. He was the entire son, and the rest of us, Mom, me, even Dad, sometimes, orbited around him like grateful planets. If Ethan breathed, Dad applauded. If Ethan lied, Dad called it strategy. If Ethan cheated, Dad called it ambition. If Ethan succeeded, it wasn't surprising, it was destiny. And if I succeeded? Well, that was simply expected, like doing the dishes, like not embarrassing the family. Ethan had a way of smiling that made people lean in. He could sell rain to a storm cloud and somehow make it feel like a privilege. He always sounded confident, even when he was wrong, and Dad loved that about him. Loved it like it was proof the Thompson legacy would outlive them all. I was different. I didn't like small talk. I didn't care about the fake networking, the forced laughter, the tedious game of who knows who. I worked part-time at a tech store during law school, studied until my eyes burned, and went home. No parties, no drinking, no wandering into rooms and pretending I was impressed by people who were impressed by themselves. My family called me dull, and the strangest thing is that made me feel safe. If they thought I was boring, they stopped looking too closely. And in a house like mine, being overlooked can feel like freedom. By the time I was a third-year law student, I'd earned a scholarship tied to a foundation under my father's name. Technically, it was family funding. Officially, it was merit-based. But in our world, nothing was truly mine unless Dad allowed it. That was the first lesson I learned about power. Sometimes you earn something, and someone else still owns the keys. Then I met Logan. It was during a business law seminar, one of those late afternoons where the lecturer thought a PowerPoint slide counted as charisma. Logan sat 2 rows behind me, and when the professor misquoted a statute with absolute confidence, Logan leaned forward and muttered, just loud enough for me to hear, "Bold strategy." I laughed, quietly, because I always laughed quietly. After class, he walked up beside me like we'd known each other for years. "You look like you were about to throw your notebook at him," he said. "I don't waste good stationery on people who don't listen," I replied. Logan grinned, not smug, not performative, just warm. He wasn't like Ethan. He didn't charm by overpowering the room. He had this steady presence, like a hand at the small of your back, guiding you through a crowd. Over time, he became the first person who ever made me feel like being quiet didn't mean I was invisible. "You don't have to be loud to be seen, Rhonda," he told me once. "You're already there. People just don't know how to look." I believed him. And for 3 years, he fit into my life like something I didn't know I'd been missing. Something soft in a house full of sharp edges. He met my parents. He met Ethan. And that's when the air in my life began to shift, subtle at first, like a storm building beyond the horizon. The first time Ethan saw Logan, my brother's eyes flicked over him like he was deciding what category Logan belonged in: threat, tool, or entertainment. Then Ethan smiled. The salesman smile. The "you can trust me" smile. "Logan," Ethan said, shaking his hand with too much confidence for a man meeting his sister's boyfriend. "I've heard a lot." Logan smiled back politely. "All good things, I hope." Ethan laughed like that was adorable. "We'll see." It could have been nothing. Brothers being brothers, if Ethan were the kind of brother who simply teased. But Ethan didn't tease. He tested. He pushed. then watched to see what broke. At family dinners, Ethan would lean toward Logan and start talking about law firms, internships, opportunities. He'd toss out names like bait. Dad would listen with approval. Mom would beam like Ethan was performing for an audience. And I would sit there, quiet as always, watching the way Logan tried to be respectful, tried to fit in, tried not to look intimidated by the Thompson machine. I told myself I was overthinking, because the alternative meant admitting something darker, that Ethan didn't just want to win. He wanted to win everything, even things that were never his to begin with. One night, after a dinner where Ethan had spent an hour praising Logan's potential like Logan was a promising investment, I caught Dad looking at Logan the way he looked at scholarship contracts and firm acquisitions. Evaluating, owning. And when Logan excused himself to take a call, Dad turned to me with that calm, judicial expression. "He seems useful," Dad said. Useful. Not kind, not good, not someone I loved. Useful. My stomach tightened, but I forced my face to stay neutral. I'd trained myself to do that my entire life. Mom touched my hand lightly. "Your father means he sees promise," she said softly. "It's a compliment." I nodded like it soothed me, but inside something cold settled into place. Because in my family, compliments were never free. They were contracts. And if Logan had just become something my father and brother were interested in, then that meant I wasn't the only one in danger of being controlled anymore. That night, lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling and listened to the silence of my apartment, my small, earned space away from the Thompson estate. I thought about how my father built his whole identity on image. I thought about how my mother smiled through discomfort like it was a virtue. I thought about how Ethan could take anything he wanted and still be praised for it. And I thought about myself, the quiet daughter, the boring one, the one they assumed would always keep her head down, swallow her feelings, and play the role. I used to believe that strategy was survival. But as I lay there, something else started to bloom beneath the calm, something sharper. A question. What happens if the quiet one stops being quiet? I didn't have the answer yet, but I could feel it coming, like thunder still far away, but moving closer with every breath. If I could pinpoint the exact moment everything broke, it wouldn't be the night I found the messages. It would be earlier, weeks earlier, when the atmosphere around me started to feel rearranged, like furniture moved in the dark. Logan began answering his phone in the other room, not dramatically, casually, as if it were nothing worth noticing. Ethan started showing up more. He framed it as mentorship, guidance, looking out for family. Dad praised the initiative. Mom nodded approvingly, like this was proof our family supported each other. And I told myself I was imagining things, because imagining betrayal felt worse than accepting discomfort. The first red flag came at a Sunday dinner. Ethan arrived late, jacket slung over one shoulder, confidence fully intact. Logan was already there, helping Mom carry plates to the table. I noticed Ethan's eyes linger, not on me, but on Logan. Measuring, calculating. "You're putting on muscle," Ethan said, clapping Logan on the shoulder. "Law school stress?" Logan laughed awkwardly. Something like that. Ethan's gaze flicked to me. Rhonda always did like reliable men. Something about the way he said reliable made my skin prickle. Later that night, Logan mentioned Ethan had invited him to help with a side project, something connected to a firm contact, a career opportunity. He looked excited, a little flattered. "He thinks I have potential," Logan said. "Your brother has connections." I smiled, encouraging, supportive. Inside, something twisted, because Ethan never gave without taking. Then there was Megan, Logan's ex-girlfriend. She started appearing at places she had no reason to be. A mutual friends gathering, a networking event Logan swore he hadn't known she'd attend. Once, even outside a cafe where Ethan and Logan were supposedly meeting to talk shop. "She's just around," Logan said, shrugging. "Small circles." But Megan wasn't subtle. She laughed too loudly at Ethan's jokes, touched Logan's arm like muscle memory, dressed sharper whenever she knew Ethan would be there. And worst of all, she looked at me like she already knew something I didn't. The kind of look women give each other when the truth is sitting between them, heavy and unspoken. Still, I stayed quiet, because that was my role. The night everything unraveled was a Thursday. Logan told me he was staying in to work on a report. He sounded tired, strained. I believed him because believing was easier than suspicion. I stopped by his apartment anyway, not to check on him. I told myself it was kindness. I picked up his favorite takeout, rehearsed a light joke in my head, and let myself imagine a normal night. Food, quiet conversation, the illusion that things were still safe. The apartment was dark, too dark, His laptop was open on the coffee table, screen glowing in the dim room like an accusation. "Megan?" I called out, confused, then corrected myself. "Logan?" No answer. I set the food down slowly, my movements careful, deliberate, as if sudden motion might shatter something fragile. The laptop chimed. A notification. I didn't rush, I didn't panic, I walked over and glanced down. One message, still thinking about last night. My body went still. Not frozen, not shaking. Still, another message popped up. That dress was a bad idea. I could barely focus. The sender's name sat at the top of the screen. "Megan." I didn't breathe. A third message appeared. "Don't let Rhonda catch on." That was the moment the room went silent. Not the peaceful kind. The vacuum kind. I sat down slowly, like my joints had suddenly forgotten how urgency worked. My brain didn't scream. My heart didn't race. I just stared at the screen and waited for the part where denial kicked in. It didn't. Instead, I scrolled. Weeks of messages, months, hotel names, inside jokes, photos that burned themselves into my memory. Casual cruelty, disguised as intimacy. And threaded through all of it, Ethan. Commenting, encouraging, coaching. "Play it cool. She's predictable. Don't mess this up before I introduce you to Dawson." My brother wasn't just aware. He was orchestrating. I closed the laptop. Carefully. I didn't throw it, didn't scream, didn't cry. I sat there in the dark and felt something in me reorganize. This wasn't just infidelity. This was hierarchy. This was Ethan taking something that mattered to me and treating it like leverage. This was my family's system, perfectly intact. I left without waking Logan. On the drive home, I wasn't angry. I was focused. The next morning, I went back. Logan answered the door, looking startled, then defensive, like he'd already rehearsed this moment and hated that it had arrived. "Rhonda, can we not do this right now?" he said quickly. "I'm already late." I walked past him and opened the laptop. Turned the screen toward him. The last message from Megan was still there. "Don't let Rhonda catch on." His face drained of color. He tried to speak, failed, tried again. "I didn't plan this," he said finally. "It just happened." I tilted my head. "For how long?" He hesitated. That was answer enough. "You're always so calm," he added, like it was a defense. "You don't react. Ethan said you wouldn't even notice." "Ah, there it was," Ethan said. I nodded slowly. "You accidentally sent hotel details for 6 months?" He flinched. "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly," I said. "You thought I was too quiet to fight back." He reached for the laptop. I pulled it away. "I already backed everything up," I added. His eyes widened. "You what?" "I'm not posting anything," I said evenly. "I'm collecting data." That made him angry. Not remorseful, not ashamed. Angry. "You can't hold this over me forever," he snapped. "I'm not holding anything," I replied. "I'm observing." I left him standing there, words stuck in his throat. By the time I got home, my phone was already buzzing. Missed calls. From Mom. From Dad. From Ethan. When I walked into my parents' house that evening, the atmosphere was staged, controlled, hostile in the quiet way only my family could manage. Dad sat behind his desk like a judge. Mom stood to the side, rearranging papers that didn't need rearranging. Ethan leaned against the wall, relaxed, confident. "Logan called me," Dad said. "He's upset." I crossed my arms. I imagine he is. Dad sighed, the disappointed sigh. Ethan explained everything. Ethan smirked. "She came on to him, Rhonda. I told her to back off." I looked at my brother. Really looked at him. "Before or after the hotel photos?" I asked. Mom gasped. Dad slammed his hand on the desk. "Enough!" He stood, towering over me like that still worked. "You are not humiliating this family over a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding?" I echoed. "Yes," he snapped. "Whatever happened is over." Ethan laughed softly. "Not exactly." I turned to him. He grinned. "We're engaged." The word echoed in my skull. Dad didn't miss a beat. "You will congratulate your brother," he said coldly, "and you will be his bridesmaid." My stomach dropped. "And if I don't?" I asked quietly. Dad leaned closer. "I can cancel your scholarship by tomorrow." There it was, the leash. I looked around the room, at my mother's averted eyes, my brother's smug smile, my father's certainty. Then I nodded. "Of course," I said softly. "I wouldn't want to embarrass the family." They all relaxed. They thought I'd surrendered. That night, alone in my apartment, I opened my laptop and started building insurance. The next morning, I woke up calm. Not the fragile, calm people associate with shock, but the kind that settles in after a decision has already been made. The kind where your mind sharpens instead of spiraling. I showered, I dressed, I went to class. And I played my role perfectly. At lunch, I texted Ethan congratulations. He replied with a heart emoji and a knew you'd come around tone that made my fingers pause for exactly half a second before I locked the phone. At dinner that night, I smiled when my parents talked about wedding venues like they were discussing a business acquisition. I nodded when Mom squeezed my hand and said how proud she was that I was being mature. Mature, another word for manageable. I accepted my place as bridesmaid without protest. Let Dad believe he'd tightened the leash. Let Ethan believe he'd won. Because the truth was simple. Silence had always been my weapon. They just never noticed when I sharpened it. That first week, I didn't dig. I observed. Ethan grew louder, more careless, drunk on his own momentum. Logan disappeared from my life completely. Blocked, erased, replaced by the new narrative. Engaged man who'd made a mistake but chosen the right future. Megan moved into Ethan's orbit seamlessly, like she'd always been there. She wore the ring like it erased history, like it rewrote it. And my parents? They performed unity with disturbing ease. Dad began introducing Ethan and Megan as the future of the Thompson legacy. Mom practiced her wedding speech in the mirror, tears already prepared for the audience. No one checked on me. That was my opening. I started small. Old messages, email threads I'd ignored for years, casual comments Ethan had made at family dinners, names, timelines, bragging disguised as jokes. Then I went deeper. One afternoon, Dad asked me to drop documents off at the firm. Ethan was out with a client, which usually meant drinks and ego stroking. His office door was open. His laptop was unlocked. I stood there for a moment. Then I stepped inside. A folder on his desktop caught my eye. Mentorship notes. I clicked. Videos, dozens of them. Practice pitches, mock presentations. Ethan talking to himself like the room was full of admirers. Most were harmless, ego, rehearsal, nothing illegal. Until one wasn't. I've got Dawson wrapped around my finger, Ethan's voice said on the screen, smug and unfiltered. He loves seeing me with Megan. Makes me look stable, responsible, like I've got my life together. I leaned closer. Rhonda's quiet, he continued. Predictable. She won't do anything. Dad raised her right. I felt nothing. Just clarity. Another video. Using Megan to boost my credibility is genius, Ethan laughed. Dean eats that stuff up. Corporate image. Power couple. I'll be fast-tracked in no time. I plugged in a USB drive, copied everything, locked the laptop, and walked out like I'd simply delivered paperwork. That night I organized. Messages, videos, emails, metadata, timelines. I labeled the main folder insurance. Then I backed it up. 3 times. One in the cloud. One on a physical drive. One hidden in plain sight, buried among draft emails no one would ever bother to open. I wasn't planning a tantrum. I was building a case. A week before the wedding, Dad hosted a family dinner to celebrate unity. Megan sat beside Ethan, glowing. The ring caught the light every time she moved her hand, like a signal flare. Dad raised his glass. This union represents strength, he said proudly. Partnership. Continuation. I watched them all smile. Then Ethan looked at me across the table. You'll be there for me, right, Rhonda? I smiled back. Oh, I said softly. I'll be there. They thought the storm had passed. They didn't realize it hadn't arrived yet. The wedding venue looked like a castle pretending to be humble. Rolling hills, white stone, expensive in ways that never admitted it. 250 guests, lawyers, investors, donors, people who loved the Thompson name because it opened doors. Champagne flowed, cameras flashed. I wore the dress Megan had chosen months earlier, back when she was still my boyfriend's ex-girlfriend, back when she pretended to be my friend. Gray brings out your eyes, she'd said. Now it just brought out the irony. Ethan found me near the aisle and clapped my shoulder. Glad you made it, he said casually. You good? Better than ever, I replied. He didn't see the phone in my hand, or the USB drive in my pocket. Minutes before the ceremony, Dad pulled me aside near the corridor leading to the bridal suite. He held a printed copy of my scholarship agreement like a warning label. You smile, he whispered. You stand where you're told. You give the toast I approved. And if you pull anything today, that scholarship is gone by morning. I met his eyes and smiled. Of course, I said. He hesitated. Something in my tone unsettled him. But control had always made him careless. He straightened his tie and walked away. The guests took their seats. The music began. Megan walked down the aisle, radiant, like nothing ugly had ever touched her life. Ethan watched her the way people watch trophies. When the officiant began talking about loyalty and trust, I almost laughed. Almost. Then came the question. If anyone here has reason, these two should not be joined in holy matrimony. I stepped forward. I do. Every head turned. Gasps rippled through the room. Megan froze mid-smile. Dad stood up. Rhonda, sit down. I didn't. I raised my phone. Before you say I do, I said calmly, I think everyone deserves to know what kind of partnership they're celebrating. The silence after my words was immediate and absolute. 250 people, frozen in place, like someone had pulled the plug on sound itself. Megan's hand slipped from Ethan's arm. Rhonda, this is not the time, my father barked, already moving toward me, his face tight with the kind of rage he only ever showed when control slipped through his fingers. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I'm not here to cause a scene, I said evenly. I'm here to tell the truth. That's when the first phone went up. Then another. People sensed it instinctively, the way crowds always do when something real is about to happen. Not gossip, not drama. Exposure. I unlocked my phone and read the first message aloud. She's perfect for appearances. Dawson loves seeing me with her. Makes me look solid, trustworthy. A murmur rolled through the guests like distant thunder. Ethan lunged forward. That's fake, he snapped. She's lying. I scrolled. Rhonda won't notice. She never does. Dad raised her to stay quiet. This time someone gasped loudly. I looked straight at Dean Dawson, seated in the front row beside my father. He was watching now, not confused, not defensive, focused. You recognize the name? I asked calmly. Dawson stood slowly. Let me see, he said. My father's face went gray. Dean, this is a family matter. I said, let me see. I walked down the aisle and handed Dawson my phone and the USB drive. This contains messages, videos, and internal files, I said, including recordings my brother made himself, dates, metadata, originals. Dawson didn't rush. He reviewed. 30 seconds passed. Then another. His expression changed, not dramatically, but decisively, like a door closing. He looked up at Ethan. These messages reference falsified internship reports, Dawson said calmly. Name-dropping my mentorship for personal leverage, bragging about unethical conduct, and academic misrepresentation. The room exploded. Whispers, shouts, phones raised higher. Megan staggered back, mascara already streaking down her face. Those were taken out of context, she cried. He didn't mean... Dawson turned to my father. Did you know about this? My father opened his mouth. No sound came out. That's enough, Dawson said, effective immediately. Ethan Thompson's placement and recommendation are suspended pending full investigation. Ethan shouted something. Rage, denial, nonsense. But no one was listening anymore. Security moved in. Megan collapsed into a chair, sobbing. My mother sat frozen, hands clenched, mascara streaking silently down her cheeks. My father looked like a man watching his entire life slide off a cliff, too shocked to even scream. I didn't wait for the fallout. I walked down the aisle, past stunned guests, past the altar, past the wreckage of everything they'd built. Outside, the air was cool. Behind me, the sound of chaos spilled through the open doors. Arguments, accusations, the sharp crack of a legacy breaking in public. By morning, the video was everywhere. The wedding, the messages, Dawson's announcement. Titles flew across social media. Lawyer's daughter exposes brother's fraud at wedding. Perfect family falls apart in 3 minutes. My phone buzzed nonstop. I didn't answer a single call. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't quiet because I was powerless. I was quiet because I was done. The internet finished what the wedding started. By sunrise, the video had crossed platforms. TikTok, X, legal forums, gossip sites that pretended they cared about ethics. Someone titled one clip, Quiet Sister Ends Golden Brother's Career in Under 4 Minutes. Another called it, When Control Backfires. I watched none of it. I made coffee in my apartment and let my phone vibrate itself into exhaustion on the counter. By noon, Thompson & Associates was trending for all the wrong reasons. Clients demanded explanations. Donors quietly withdrew. Partners started deleting photos with my father like proximity itself was contagious. Dad called at 9:47 p.m. I let it ring twice. What have you done? He demanded, his voice stripped of authority and thick with panic. I told the truth, I said. You humiliated this family, he snapped. The firm is bleeding clients. Megan's family pulled their funding. That's strange, I replied calmly. I thought image was everything. Silence. Then, fix this. Call Dean Dawson. Tell him it was exaggerated. Why would I lie for Ethan again? His voice cracked. Because everything I built is falling apart. I leaned back in my chair. Then maybe it shouldn't have been built on fraud. He hung up. The fallout came fast. Ethan was suspended indefinitely. Megan lost her job offer within days. My mother deactivated every social account she had. The firm's website disabled comments, but screenshots don't forget. 3 days later, Mom showed up at my door. She looked smaller somehow, not fragile, just emptied. "You didn't have to be cruel," she said softly. "I wasn't," I replied. "I was precise." She pleaded, begged, asked me to help my father salvage something, anything. I didn't argue. I simply said, "I spent my life being quiet so everyone else could stay comfortable. I'm not doing that anymore." She left without another word. That night, I received an email from Dean Dawson. "Rhonda, I owe you an apology." He called me himself. "I believe the wrong narrative," he admitted. "Your father and brother curated a version of reality many of us accepted too easily." Then he offered me what I'd never been given: a full scholarship, a research position, a mentor who valued integrity over performance. No strings. When we hung up, I sat in silence for a long time, not stunned, not emotional, just settled. The irony wasn't lost on me. The man my father used as a status symbol became the one who saw me clearly. Over the next few months, the Thompson name unraveled. Investigations opened, lawsuits followed. The firm's sign came down one afternoon and was replaced with a bland leasing banner. I passed it on my way to class and laughed for the first time in weeks. Ethan tried to retaliate. Anonymous accusations, fake screenshots, claims I'd sabotaged him out of envy. They lasted 12 hours. The metadata betrayed him. The IP address sealed it. His lawyer sent a desperate email suggesting mutual silence. Instead, a defamation suit was filed. Ethan issued a public apology written with trembling hands. No one cared. Years passed. I graduated top of my class, built a quiet life, a clean reputation, no drama, no Thompson dinners, no expectations hanging in the air. Then, 8 years later, an email arrived. Subject: urgent, regarding Ethan Thompson. Kidney failure. Uninsured. A 6-year-old son. I verified everything. Then Ethan emailed me himself. "I don't deserve your help, but my son doesn't deserve to lose his father." I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I replied, "I'll pay for the treatment under one condition. You sign a full confession. And after that, no contact." 3 days later, the confession arrived. No excuses, no justifications. I forwarded it to my lawyer and set up a trust in his son's name. The money went directly to the hospital. Ethan never contacted me again. Months later, I received a message from an unfamiliar address. "Hi, Miss Thompson. I'm Noah. Dad said you helped me when you didn't have to. Thank you." I closed my laptop and let the room fall silent. They called me cold for walking away. But in the end, I was the only one who repaired anything. They mistook quiet for weakness. They were wrong.